There is an old saying, the strongest trees are never the ones that grow overnight. They are the ones that survive thousands of quiet mornings. Most people spend years searching for the perfect opportunity, the perfect job, the perfect mentor, the perfect moment. But very few people ever ask a different question. What if my future is waiting for something much smaller? Not a miracle, not a lottery ticket, not a wealthy family, just 1 hour, one honest hour that nobody applauds, 1 hour that nobody notices, 1 hour repeated so many times that destiny quietly begins to change. Today's story is about a man who possessed almost nothing. No university degree, no connections, no savings, no confidence. People barely remembered his name.
Yet years later, strangers traveled across the city just to shake his hand. How? Not because fortune suddenly smiled upon him, because he made one decision that almost everyone else considered too insignificant to matter. And that tiny decision slowly rewrote his entire life. In the old Scottish city of Edinburgh, hidden between stone streets polished by centuries of rain, lived a 30-year-old maintenance worker named Daniel Harper. Every evening, while restaurants filled with laughter and office workers hurried home to their families, Daniel's day was only beginning. His workplace was the city's largest public library. Ironically, the man who cleaned thousands of books had almost never read one. When the library closed at 9 o'clock, silence swallowed the enormous building. Daniel unlocked the maintenance closet. He collected his mop, filled his bucket, pulled on thick rubber gloves, then began the same routine, cleaning muddy footprints, emptying overflowing trash bins, wiping fingerprints from glass doors, polishing wooden tables. Where students had spent the day chasing dreams Daniel believed belonged only to other people. Night after night, month after month, year after year, his paycheck barely covered rent for a tiny basement apartment whose only window faced an alleyway. When rain fell, water leaked through the ceiling. When winter arrived, the room became colder than the streets outside. But Daniel rarely complained, not because he was happy, because he had quietly accepted that life would probably never become different. People often ignored him. Visitors walked around him as though he were part of the furniture. Sometimes, children accidentally bumped into his cleaning cart without apologizing. Businessmen dropped coffee cups into bins he had just emptied. University students laughed loudly while discussing careers that sounded impossible to him. Lawyers, doctors, engineers, entrepreneurs. Daniel listened from a distance, not with jealousy, with resignation. Worlds belonged to educated people, not cleaners, at least. That was the story he had repeated to himself for almost 10 years. One freezing November evening, everything nearly stayed exactly the same. Nearly outside, snow drifted across the ancient streets inside the library. The heating system suddenly failed. The last visitors hurried away. Only one elderly gentleman remained seated near a fireplace that had already gone cold. Daniel approached politely. Sir, we're closing." The old man looked up from an enormous leather-bound book. His silver hair framed a weathered face marked not by age, but by peace. He smiled. "I know." Then he closed the book slowly. "I was waiting for you." Daniel frowned. "For me?" The stranger nodded. "I've watched you for months." Daniel felt uncomfortable. Had he done something wrong? The old man continued. "Every night you clean this place with remarkable care. You return every misplaced chair. You straighten every crooked picture frame. You even arrange books that no one asked you to arrange. Daniel shrugged. It's just my job. The old man looked directly into his eyes. No, it's your character. Those words landed somewhere Daniel could not explain. Nobody had complimented his character before. People noticed clean floors, not the man cleaning them. The gentleman introduced himself. My name is Arthur Bennett. He had once been a history professor before retiring many years earlier. Since losing his wife, the library had become his second home. Daniel apologized for interrupting. Arthur stood, gathering several heavy books. Without thinking, Daniel carried them to the entrance. Arthur smiled again. You always help people. Daniel laughed awkwardly. I suppose lifting boxes is easier than solving problems. Arthur stopped walking, then asked a question Daniel had never heard before. What problem are you trying to solve with your life? Daniel opened his mouth. Nothing came out because he had never thought about life that way. He worked, he paid bills, he slept, he repeated, yesterday. That wasn't solving life, that was surviving it. Outside, snowflakes continued falling. Arthur reached into his worn leather bag. He removed a small notebook. Dark green cover was faded, corners bent, pages yellowed. It looked almost worthless. I want you to have this? Daniel stepped back. I can't accept gifts. You can. I really shouldn't. Arthur smiled gently. This notebook has already served its purpose. Daniel reluctantly accepted it. The first page contained only one handwritten sentence. The person you become is hidden inside what you repeatedly do when nobody is watching. Daniel stared at the words. Simple, yet strangely unsettling. Arthur spoke softly. Every successful life I've ever studied began long before success appeared. It began with invisible habits. Then he added something Daniel would remember forever. You don't need another job. You don't need more luck. You need one protected hour. Daniel looked confused. 1 hour for what? Arthur pointed toward the library. Learning, thinking, practicing, building the person your future requires. Daniel almost laughed. I work nights. I'm exhausted. Arthur nodded. I know that's exactly why it matters. Anyone can improve when life feels easy. The people who transform their future are the ones who keep one promise to themselves, especially when they're tired. That night, Daniel returned to his apartment carrying nothing except a cleaning uniform and a notebook worth less than $1, or so he thought. Prepared instant noodles, sat on the edge of his old bed, opened the notebook. Again, on the second page, Arthur had written another sentence. If you don't choose your daily habits, someone else will choose your future. Daniel couldn't stop reading. Every page contained only a single idea, short, simple, impossible to ignore. By the time he closed the notebook, nearly 40 minutes had passed. For the first time in years, he had forgotten to worry about money. The next morning, before sleeping, Daniel made a decision so small it almost sounded ridiculous. Tomorrow, he would spend exactly 1 hour learning something useful. Not 5 hours. Not until midnight. Not after getting rich. Not after getting rich. Not next year, tomorrow. Just 1 hour. He didn't know it yet. But history often begins with decisions that look completely ordinary. And somewhere across the city, Arthur Bennett smiled quietly because he knew something Daniel did not. A person's destiny rarely changes in dramatic moments. It changes when nobody is looking.